for the second time so far as the Michigan head coach. He's only been the Michigan head coach for what, 2.5 months-ish? Sherrone Moore's had to make an extremely tough decision, and certainly he's making the right steps now, but it's a debacle right now in Ann Arbor. I've never seen this type of thing happen since I've only covered the team for my 10th year, but nonetheless, you got another coach, at least not a position coach, but still, favored son Denard Robinson arrested for operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Let's talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
I'd say happy Monday. Not happy. It's tax day. It's a painful day. It's not a fun day. What a kick in the you-know-what today is. And it made worse by the news coming out today. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And so after I got done with the kick in the pants that tax day was, finally I'm like, all right, let's get to writing here because we got the taxes done. I waited till the last possible second because I knew I was going to have a huge tax bill. And so I get through that and then sit down at my computer, do a couple things, and before you know it, breaking news, Denard Robinson, favored, cherished son, certainly a favorite Wolverine for so many, someone who was a bright spot in a dark time. You coming out of the early Rich Rod stretch where things were not good. He was one of the first signs that things maybe there was some light on the horizon with his first ever snap as a Wolverine in 2010, going for a touchdown while losing his shoe. And then he comes back as a coach and everyone's just so excited. I still like other people on the sideline when they see Denard walk by, something in them lights up. And so it makes it that much more disappointing that the news breaks. First I saw it to post it was Aaron McMahon from MLive, that Denard Robinson was arrested at 3:05 a.m. for operating a vehicle while intoxicated. While I do use the term drunk driving, I mean, it could be something else. It could be, marijuana. I don't know what it is. But nonetheless, operating a vehicle while intoxicated, got in a single car crash, 3:05 a.m., man. What the heck? Like, that's all I got, really, is like, what the heck? Like, in a weird way, I would understand if it was some of the players doing it because, they're young, they don't have the life experience and stuff. And I mean, yes, Denard still relatively young. Greg Scruggs still relatively young. But, I mean, Denard played 12 years ago. He's 12 years removed from his playing career. It's not the first time he's had a weird behind the wheel incident. I know it wasn't drunk driving, but the finding him while asleep behind a running vehicle behind the wheel, thing that happened when he was a Jacksonville Jaguar. It is just bizarre. And you would think that after the Greg Scruggs incident, it'd be a cautionary tale. So no excuses, man. And it's not something that you can do, especially if you're trying to move up in your coaching career, if you're trying to be a leader of young men. It's just something that cannot happen. Because it is one of those things where it's like something could have happened, it didn't, thankfully, in terms of hurting himself, someone else. But man, you just cannot. And so at this juncture, he has been suspended by Sherrone Moore. I had this pulled up and then I did something else. So let's give me 2 seconds here. And then we will read you that quote. So what he had to say is, we are aware of an incident involving Denard Robinson and have suspended him indefinitely. We will continue to monitor the situation. We'll have no further comment at this time. It's the right move because you want to get the facts. You want to get the police report. You want to get all the details and everything right before you make a decision. But, I mean, at this point, like, if you're Sherrone Moore, you've just been put in such a difficult position. It's one thing when you're bringing in a guy who's been an official hire for 9 days is what Greg Scruggs was officially hired for. And That's one thing. It's another thing entirely when it's like you have to do this to the most beloved Wolverine of a generation, right? Like he was easily the bright spot, most beloved Wolverine of the Rich Rod and Brady Hoke era. Like there's no one else I can imagine that comes anywhere close to the love and admiration and adoration that Denard got in that era. So it's heartbreaking, man. And it's a difficult spot for Sherrone to be put in his first head coaching job, to have to suspend two coaches, one on field, one off field. And to be put in a position to be like, I'm going to have to do something about this guy, right? It's this kind of same like hard spot. I know everyone didn't really feel like this was the case necessarily with Ward Manuel and Juwan Howard, but I mean, like when you have a favored son and you have to let them go, you do have to kind of toe a line to some degree, and because you don't want them to end up being disgraced. But when you disgrace yourself let's just be honest and clear about that, is disgracing yourself, drunk driving. It's one thing to have wins and losses. Obviously, Juwan had other problems, but it is an issue. And I don't understand why it's becoming an issue with the coaches. So I would have no problem with him being removed from his post at this point. And as much as that would suck to lose Denard Robinson, and again, I'm not calling for his job, but in a way, I just don't see how you can keep it. Like, you're trying to be Michigan, you're trying to be above reproach. You want to be the leaders and best. That's the type of thing that you just can't tolerate. Because when you do, then it starts to become, you're starting to imply to your players that, hey, that's okay. There's certain things in this world that aren't okay. Drunk driving is one of them that's not okay. Or intoxicated driving, however you want to put it. It's a brutal situation, and it's a bad look. It's a black eye on Michigan, and it's just one of those things that you just wish that wouldn't have happened. Now, if I'm Sherrone at this point, I'd heard of Jim Harbaugh instituting some things, not necessarily as much for his coaches in just general, and some of like the outings and stuff that they might have extracurricular during the summer. I had heard of certain rules that they had to abide by when they're out with the other coaches and their wives and all of that kind of stuff. Sherrone's going to have to kind of put the hammer down here. And when it's like, hey, if you're going to go out, you have to Uber. You cannot get behind the wheel of a vehicle. And if we find out you did, regardless if you're arrested or not, that's an instant suspension, that type of thing. You're going to have to just really be very strict about it. And it sucks that you're going to have to treat coaches with kid gloves, but it's become a pattern, unfortunately. And it's not a pattern that they can keep having. I know it's tough to live in Michigan coming out of the winter months, but it's beautiful outside, guys. Just be smart. This is to you guys too. Take an Uber if you've been driving. If there isn't an Uber around, in Ann Arbor, assuredly there will be one at any time pretty much, but, call somebody, or it doesn't kill you to just have to hang out wherever you're hanging out, better than the alternative. All right. So let's, I want to talk about recruiting in general, just kind of a general recruiting thing. And then we will carry on from there. So we will do that here in just a moment. Before we do, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster as well as for free. Now, LinkedIn is not just a job board, just like Connor Stallions. LinkedIn helps you hire, has a vast network. Oh, they changed the verbiage on me. Has a vast network that helps you find professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might even be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, they might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why they have just launched a feature to help you write job descriptions, making the process easier and faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's move on from the Denard stuff. I don't really have a million things to say about that. Thought I might, but I don't. So Michigan recruiting. I mean, this goes basketball, football. Both are still on this. Now, basketball at least got George Washington back in the fold, withdrew from the portal. Didn't look good last year, but that's good news, right? That's a solid, that's at least something at this point. But it's not, this isn't like a pull a ripcord scenario. Remember, I've told you a million times around this time of year, don't panic. Michigan usually is going through something of a drought right around now. Not every year. Last year was not the case. It was kind of an aberration in a way that they had the class pretty much locked up by June. Because usually we are sitting here and being like, don't worry, this is how it goes. And you mix in the fact that there's all the coaching uncertainty, staff turnover, building a new staff. I mean, heck, the most recent on-field coach was hired like 3 weeks ago, if that. So, certainly it's there's a lot to work on, but recruiting is still it's you still want something to happen. Like Taz Williams came and went without committing. Although I think he was one of the ones that stayed an extra day. But then you start looking at stuff like Alex Graham, the former Cass Tech cornerback, safety, whatever you want to look at him as, who's at IMG Academy, looked like Michigan's to lose. Just got a crystal ball today from Alan True, who certainly has a good relationship with him to go to Colorado. That's unideal. Now, Avery Gash, who's been to Michigan 18 times, probably more, the offensive lineman from Franklin, Michigan, if that's, I believe, West Bloomfield, yeah, goes to Groves High School, like Birmingham Groves. He finally got a crystal ball for, it's a 4-star high-end guy in the backyard. He got a crystal ball from True as well to come to Michigan. So there's some positive, some negative, but man, when you look at what Ohio State's doing, and I mean, obviously they're doing a heck of a lot. And they usually do. It's not like a new thing for them, right? But at some point, like I am of the believer, like you don't need to get all these 5 stars and everything. Michigan showed you that, but you need a couple over a couple classes. And you need to be able to keep pace a little bit. Ohio State's been on a torrid pace so far, number 1 in the country, 13 commits, 3 or 5 stars, 8 4 stars. Penn State's got 12, and they're 6 4 stars, 6 3 stars. So that's the type of thing where maybe, you kind of hope to be around there. But Michigan currently languishing where Michigan should never languish. And I'm not trying to feed into Buckeye narratives because, I mean, again, it won't end this way. It's just where it is right now. 3 commitments at the moment, all are 4 stars. So, I mean, okay, that's good that you got that. You lost a couple of the guys you did have. They don't seem like they're trending back in your direction. What's his name? And the other guy, Mantrez Walker, the linebacker from Buford, Georgia, and the Chris Ewald. But obviously, like Carter Smith looks like a really impressive haul for them, but you got to get this going one way or another. Someone has got to break the drought. And that includes with the transfer portal, and that includes both sports, man. Because it's amazing to me. Again, I'm not trying to feed into Buckeye narratives, but it is amazing to me the lack of push on the recruiting trail Michigan has managed to get coming off of 3 college football playoff appearances and a national title win. Now, obviously, there's some imposed restrictions, whether it is the aforementioned coaching changes. It also is the slow-footedness with the NIL. And now that doesn't mean that they're going to change things in NIL. I see people still complaining, saying like, well, this school and this school, you have to keep in your mind that Michigan is going to play a different game in NIL. And that is going to be transformational, not transactional. That is different than how a lot of other schools are operating. That said, they need to get their pitch right here. And they need to figure out how they're going to manage this, because whatever they're doing right now is not working. You can't have 3 commitments at this juncture coming off of a national championship and they just have so many people who are just kind of waiting in the wings, and yet they still just haven't gotten there. Now we look at who they could get. It feels like they've cooled off for a lot of the guys that looked really hot. DJ Pickett was a hot name, eliminated them. Khalil Lockett was a big name. I don't think that he's really in the cards for them. Like the 5 stars that they were looking at, it seems unlikely for the most part. There is that offensive tackle. Is this the one, Andrew Babalola? I don't think that's the one that I was thinking of. There certainly are some high end players who are in the mix. But you've got to get better. You've got to do better. You've got to keep a little bit of pace, because as much as you want to create this development culture and all this, you still need, like, that's the good thing is you've got a Will Johnson, who is a 5-star. You got a Donovan Edwards, who is a 5-star. You need to have more of the guys that do end up showing up and being the 5-star, even though that wasn't what they were looking at as a recruit. The Mason Grahams, the Kenneth Grants, right? Those were low 4 stars, but they were 4 stars once everything was said and done. So Michigan's got to figure this out, right? And they need to get wide receivers. They need to get skill players. They need to close with the guys who are local. That's why I have to bring up Alex Graham. Yes, he transferred to IMG Academy, but and maybe, certainly they could have evaluated and said, you know what, we want a different type of guy. That's possible. Right, right above him on this list is Jamari Deloach, who feels like he's a strong option for the Wolverines. You look at Janon Blair. Both of these are defensive backs. They both, if I had crystal balls right now, I would indicate that both of them would end up at Michigan. But again, things can change. Certainly, the running back recruiting has been on an uptick with Tony Alford. But man, they got to close with somebody. They got to start the ball rolling. At least now you're getting visits. You've got the spring game coming up next week. But when I think about the spring game last year, you had 7 guys that were there who were commits, not signees, but commits. And now, if you get them all, there's only 3. And then you got Bobby Kenku setting up, it was one of your commits, setting up official visits elsewhere. So they got to figure something out as far as that's concerned. All right, we're going to continue on here, and we're going to do so in just a moment. But before we do, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bet. That's guaranteed. It's the deal that I got. It's amazing. So that's $150, win or lose. Just minimal bet. There you go. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's super safe, super secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So that was a brutal week last week, and thanks for the people who gave me well wishes for my back. That was maybe the 2nd or 3rd worst backache. More than a backache. It's not like, oh, my back just kind of hurts. It was fully locked up, couldn't move, couldn't walk really. So started finally feeling better over the weekend, had a little tiny bit of a setback, and then started getting better again. But that was a brutal scenario. So thank you for your patience here. So I got the spring game coming up here. They've had the draft. So we are going to be seeing that. It's kind of funny. It just doesn't feel like it's coming yet. But yet we have that less than a week away. Ohio State had theirs. They continue to not look terribly impressive. So I will be interested to see what happens as far as this is concerned. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on the quarterback and receivers for me. That's the big thing. Can the offense do anything against? I mean, granted, it's not going to be the Team 1 offense versus Team 2 defense and vice versa. I kind of wish it was, but it's actually kind of more interesting to do it this way, because when you mix things up, you kind of get better looks at individual players rather than full units. Certainly, they know what the full units look like, but that kind of gives a little bit more opportunity to some of the guys. That's why Peyton O'Leary absolutely balled out last year. Now, he could certainly put himself in a position again Michigan needs receivers. He could put himself in a position again to really shine and really help this team because they need receivers. But that's I think the thing that I'm most looking for. Who are going to be those guys like the Peyton O'Leary and Benjamin Halls? Hopefully, it's those same guys again because you want to see repeat performances by guys that maybe have that in their wheelhouse, but haven't necessarily seen them a lot in actual gameplay. I'm very excited to see a guy like Brady Prescorn. Fell down the recruiting rankings, but at the time of his commitment was just outside of the 5-star range. Then he fell down into like the 100s or something, or 200s or something. But to see a guy like him, I think that's exciting. To see Jaden Davis and what he's capable of doing, because as much as we write off freshman quarterbacks, you have to keep in mind and I certainly am one who's going to write off a freshman quarterback in general. You have to keep in mind as an early enrollee, he does have an opportunity. Because he could, we didn't get to see J.J. McCarthy in a spring game as an early enrollee. We do get to see Jaden Davis. So when you have that full spring scenario, you enter fall camp already somewhat of a veteran. And if he has that upside and can learn the playbook and not make mistakes, then maybe it's not the start of the season. Maybe it's down the road. He ends up being the guy. Now, you don't want to trust a freshman at quarterback, especially with a schedule like this. Not a good scenario. Pre-podcast, I used to always talk about how you didn't really want to throw Brandon Peters to the Wolves because when you ruin a guy's confidence, you ruin it. So you don't want to end up in that scenario by being like, congratulations, you're starting against Texas if you can help it. But at the same time, he'll be a little bit more of a wily veteran than just a freshman who arrived in the summer. But I do want to see what he's able to do. Quick learner. Watched Jim Harbaugh working with him in some of the bowl prep, spending a lot of extra time with him. It was the only time he got to spend with him, really, and see what he's capable of. And I think that will be interesting. Obviously, I want to see receivers emerge, but again, when you look at the scholarships receiver position, it's slim. Not a lot going on there. Literally, 2 guys from last year. One guy from 2 years ago. Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan, Frederick Moore. Those are your spring scholarship receiver. Well, actually, there's one more. There's Christian Dixon. Christian, bro, you got to step up. This is your time. This is your moment, man. It's funny because when Christian Dixon had committed, it was like, man, this guy's going to be good. He's fast and all this stuff. And he just kind of, I know he was dabbling at defensive back too. So I bet, at this point, you need receivers. Can you play receiver? Can you catch the ball? Can you run? Can you get open? Do something. I just don't want to see the defense, whatever the defense is out there, just dominate the offense because the offense is what we know the defense is probably going to be really good. So I want to see I really want to see the offense have a little bit of success. Not like, and I understand Ohio State ran their stuff differently, right? The defense got points for doing certain things and all of that. But I really want to see it be kind of like a 24-17 type game. Because the defense is ahead of the offense. I just want to see the offense be able to put together some drives. I think that's on either side. Doesn't really matter if it's the Mace team or the blue team. Just want to see that happen. So, all right. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow we'll either do a reaction from we're meeting with Louis Pizzuto, the new defensive line coach, and Steve Kazula, the new tight ends coach. So we'll either react to that or that will come on Wednesday, and whichever other day we will get to my defensive 2 deep because we're going to do that this week before we get to the spring game, and then we will because we're going to want to revisit that after the spring game. So that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.